If everyone please stand. You may be seated.
Hi, my name is Mike Walker. This is Rodney. We're our dad's sons, obviously. Thank you for being here. Dad'd be so happy to see all of you here for him. These words are from both of us. Losing our dad is one of the most difficult things we have ever gone through. As we stand here today, we realize how fortunate we were to have him as our father. Our father was hardworking, strong, and loving. However, he was no saint by any means or stretch of the imagination. We would always look forward to his friends, Jim, which is here today, to come over to the house. They would reminisce and tell stories, and every once in a while, after they've had a few beers and drinks, they would tell the unedited versions. And we would learn some new information about our dad, about his wild side. We sure do miss those days. I remember one time I asked Mom, "Why does Dad work so hard?" She said, "Honey, everyone's dad works like that." That's one of the biggest life lessons I'll take from my father, both of us, the value of hard work. He woke up every day, put his shoes on, went to work to provide for our family. I can count on one hand how many times Dad was ever sick. Even if he didn't feel good, he'd get up and go to work. He truly believed that if you worked hard, treated people right, with a little luck from God, you can have a good life. Sorry, a little nervous. Rodney, I know this is not the time or place, and probably the rest of y'all, but Dad had another child.
Say what?
This child was called the LPD program. Dad loved that ship. Dad loved that ship like his own. He was so proud and honored when he talked about it. I remember one time he invited Dad and I, and Alma was there, to New York City for the commissioning of the USS New York. He looked like a rooster walking around that city. He owned it that weekend. Another time I remember when he was in Kenner and he had to take one of the ships under the bridges. That river was pretty high. I see y'all back there. Dad sat there and crunched numbers and crunched numbers and crunched numbers until he absolutely was sure. And he told them, "Let's do it." Needless to say, it made it. His pride and joy carried over to Rodney and I. One time I was in Jacksonville and the USS New York was getting restationed to Mayport, and it pulled into port, and all the other ships were blowing their horns, and the water was going everywhere, the cannons. It was pretty awesome. And Rodney, Mom, the girls, Carly and I ran out to watch it. Rodney and I actually had tears in our eyes watching that bad boy pull in. That was definitely a proud moment. Dad started his career in Jacksonville, and now his proud ship was pulling in. In our opinion, and I know all the co-workers are here, we would love to petition the U.S. Navy to name a ship after our dad, USS Burt and Walker. With all that hard work, Dad also liked to have fun and laugh. Man, we missed that laugh. Dad was a youth football coach for many years. He coached both of us, actually, when we were kids. His passion was defense, and his old saying was, "Send them all," because he wanted to blitz. He loved teaching young boys to become young men. Not sure if you know this, but Dad was inducted into the Youth Football Hall of Fame. What an honor to be his son. Rodney and I will never watch another football game, especially the Saints, without thinking of our dad. Who Dad? We all used to go to Myrtle Beach and play in a golf tournament.
Yeah.
Called the Myrtle Open or something. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you guys. One time we were playing a par 3 golf course that had lights on it. We weren't in the best shape. And Dad snap hooked his tee shot over into palmetto bushes. And we all went in there, and there was a homeless person sleeping. And Dad yelled out, "I killed him!" And we took off running. I think we might have been crazy. But you know what? We're walkers. Another Myrtle Beach story. Dad, we were in the elevator, and this older couple got on. And they were holding hands, and Dad was in the back of the elevator, and all of a sudden he said, "Attention!" And that old man dropped his wife's hand and sat there. And we couldn't hold back any longer. We just started laughing until we almost peed our pants. Dad, you had a sense of humor that we absolutely loved. One other story, Dad and I were driving back to D.C. from Jacksonville. We were in my old Pontiac Firebird, and didn't have AC, and he had his feet hanging out the window. We got to North Carolina, and this F-16 pilot thought it would be funny to buzz the highway. And he came down, and Dad came up awake, almost hit the roof. He started saying all kinds of words that I can't repeat in here, and we laughed for hours. And it was funny. A couple years ago, I brought it up, and we literally sat laughing on the phone. It was pretty awesome. Those were great times. One thing you could probably guess about Dad, Rodney, and I is that we were super competitive. We started a golf tournament, the three of us, called the Walker Cup. Well, Dad created it, but he only won it one time. And he would be so frustrated that his two sons would beat him at his game.
Yeah.
The last time he went to Rodney's about a month or so ago, the trophy was sitting on the mantle, and he just looked at it and mumbled under his breath, "Dad, if it was up to me, you've won the Walker Cup forever, and we'll definitely play golf with you again." Now, we asked the funeral director if we could take him out one more time. Weekend at Burt's. They denied that request. When the three of us get together, it always turns to who's better or who's faster. Well, I can't remember what year it was, but we all went to the go-kart track. And there's a big sign there that says, "No bumping." We were bumping. We were wearing each other's carts out. If you ain't rubbing, you ain't racing. Dad was in the lead. We came around the corner, and there was a car coming from the opposite way that got spun around, and Dad hit it head-on collision. And he ended up breaking his hip. And he had surgery while he was in Jacksonville. Rodney and I were there. The doctor came out in the hallway and said, "I think your dad really is Superman." And they said that we should put a statue up in front of him because in less than 24 hours, he was already moving down the hallways, racing anybody that he could. Another passion to Dad was his family. Mom, even though we had a crazy childhood, Dad loved you. Dad knew to see that you would be best for Rodney and I. And thank you for always being a soundboard for our dad. He could talk to you about anything. Edna, Darla, you and Dad and I had good times in our house in Burt. We laughed a lot. In this story, you'll remember, Dad used to smoke in our house in Burt, and we were tired of it. And I packed his cigarettes with these firecrackers on the top. So he'd light the cigarette, and boom, the whole end of it would go. And he'd jump back, But little did he know, he lit it again. There was another one in there. Pop! He jumped back and then he started cussing us out. And we were dying laughing. And he said, there better not be another one. But you guessed it. He lit it. And the whole thing went, he threw it at me. Said some choice words, but we were crying laughing. If you remember that story, darling. But we also cried a lot. And Dad was a stronghold during a trying time when you lost Tony.
Yes.
He never left your side. And Dad loved you, Edna. And I hope you know it. And I hope you know that. Michelle, or Senorita, where's Michelle at? Right there. Dad always treated you like a daughter. Always. You and Dad had a very special relationship. All the way to the end. Thank you for loving my dad like you did, even if you think you're his favorite. He loved you so much. Dad was sort of crazy. Everybody knows that. Until his grandchildren came along. No, you're good. My shoulder. Came along, and then he drove us crazy. Brycey, you changed your pawpaw's life. When you were born, I never seen him smile so much. When he came to Hawaii, he loved spending every waking moment with you. As you got older, he called you his little princess. And I'm going to tell you something. He really wanted to be at your graduation Saturday. But you know what? He'll be looking down at you, and he's proud of you. Bradley, he was always in your corner, but he always wanted to hear about your sports, and just how life was treating you. Your papa will always be your biggest fan, son. You will forever carry on the Walker name. Make him proud. And he knew the potential that you had for an outstanding life. Do your best, son. One thing that you requested from Papa, that he'd take you around the old towns and everything. And it would be an honor for Rodney and I to show you everything, if you'd like. Mackenzie, your pawpaw said the first thing he saw you when you were born, that you're not a Big Mac, you're a little Mac. And you've been Mackie ever since. He loved coming over for your birthdays, honey. Pawpaw couldn't believe that you were already taking college classes as a middle schooler. You rocked his world. Keep up the great work and make Pawpaw proud. He loved you. Kendall, honey, your papa loved holding you. Every time you see a picture of you when you were a baby, he was always holding you. He never wanted to let go, honey. You and him, out of all the 4 grandchildren, the academics is just amazing. Your math skills and his math skills are right on pack. Maybe one day, you'll be an engineer just like him, or an attorney, or president. You have my vote, honey. You have my vote. The last time he was there, you made pancakes for him. And he raved over that. He called me on the phone and said it was his best visit. You made his day. Thank you. Uncle Rankin, Aunt Kathy. Dad cared so much for both of you. You know that.
Yeah.
Dad is in heaven with Pawpaw, Granny, and all your siblings. He is definitely trying to control everything up there. But you know what? He's pulling for you down here.
Yeah.
Do your best. He loves you. CJ, Walt. Dad loved spending time with you these last 3 years. Your friendships grew closer and closer. And I know he took care of you when you lost your son, Brad. And thank you from both of us for taking care of us while we lost our father. Alma, you made my dad smile. My dad never owned a passport until he met you. We enjoyed watching your trips to places that he had only dreamed about before. Thank you for your love and support for our father.
Thank you.
This one's the hardest. Rodney. Dad told you he was proud of you, and so am I. When he left your house, he called me and said that was his very best visit. He was hard on you, but you know what? Dad loved you. We will forever be best friends. And you and I carry on his legacy. Work hard, love forever, and be the best father that we can be. The last 20 years of Dad's life was pretty bad, obviously, and it was a living hell to him medically. But you know what? Dad really was Superman. I'm telling you, I think if he ripped his shirt open, it'd be the S. He literally knew as much as the doctors, and sometimes he would tell them what to do. He faced each challenge and battle with confidence and overcame each one. Well, this last war took its toll. When Rodney and I got the call from the ICU nurse last weekend, we knew we had to be by his side. This was not his typical challenge because it had so many difficult obstacles. He had so much going against him, but he still kept fighting. He never became fully awake after his surgery, but Rodney and I kept talking with him. I even read his card that Terry brought from his coworkers. Excuse me. I honestly believed he heard us. One time, Mom asked us to tell Dad what was going on with his numbers, because Dad was such a numbers guy. He knew all his levels, everything. So we told him, and I told him that he needed a miracle. And he started to cry. And he had a little tear right here in his eye. And it was just, sent us off the edge, But we talked to the doctor on Thursday. He gave us his blessing. And Dad was just too weak and was going downhill quickly. We sat by his bedside, and Rodney told him it was okay, and he had our blessing to go ahead. He died 25 minutes later. Dad was a fighter until the end. The last thing I'll say is he showed us strength and love right up until his last days with us. I hope that one day when we die, our children can look back, tell funny stories about us, and talk about how much we love them. Then, like our Father, we will have led a complete life. Love you. So, Bradley.
Hello, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Bradley, Papa's only grandson. As many of you know, my grandfather was a very strong, prideful, and tough man. He had a lot of battles in his life, but would somehow find a way to fight through each and every one of them. He was a fighter. When I knew I was going to see my grandfather, I knew two things were guaranteed. There were going to be a lot of laughs, and no matter what, there would be a life lesson learned. Most of these lessons were just to teach me how to become a better person, but also a few were thrown in like how to blitz and reading the offensive line. One of my favorite things to do with my grandfather was to pull every fishing pole out of the garage and sit there on the back porch and pick apart and untangle every knot that would build up in each one of them. I could sit there for hours, just me, him, and of course his cup of coffee. Heaven has gained an angel today, but one thing is for certain. He's not up there sitting down and relaxing. He's either out there on the field calling out the blitz or finishing up a round of golf. So Papa, don't you worry about me down here. I'm going to do just fine. With everything you taught me and trying to become the man you are.
Okay, I'm Jim Wyndham, long time friend of Burt. When I heard him pass, I was thinking about what I was going to say, if I could say anything, and I thank you for that. But most of the stuff that he and I got into we probably shouldn't talk about it. But I was sitting at the computer and I was just trying to come up with something. And I said, well, I'm gonna try to write something down so I think Burton would like. And this is what I think Burton would say and leave with his loved ones. I'd like a memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when life is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly through the Mississippi pines. In bright and sunny days, I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry them before the sun. With happy memories that I leave when life is done, I love you all and will love you forever. So, okay, Burton, as you walk the heavenly streets of gold, tune up your golf game, and I will see you later, God willing.
I'm Terry Foskey from Navy, NEP, Sea Systems Command, PO ships, LPD-17 program. Burt and I had a lot in common. He grew up in the piney woods of Mississippi, and I grew up in the piney woods of Georgia, and we were always had a kind of a country boy connection. And I always enjoyed being around Burt, his sense of humor, and Burt made quite the impact on the Navy, on our program, and it's kind of amazing that the small little community of McHenry was his hometown. He worked for a while, I don't know if you know this, but he worked for a while for Westinghouse on a floating nuclear plant. I think that's where his other friend knew him from. But he cut his teeth in Ingalls. He learned a lot about shipbuilding down there and worked on some of the nuclear submarines. And then in the early 90s, he started working on a kind of a research program to come up with the next amphibious assault ship. And that was, his first love was ship engineering. And he was very proud of his accomplishments in the LPD-17. But in the early 90s, when he was assigned to that program, they had to come up with the whole hull form, all the compartments, strength of the steel for the ship's hull, the tanks, try to figure out how much capacity it could hold, both internally, passengers, equipment, aircraft, everything. And he became the foremost expert in the Navy on weight and stability for our ship. They produced a ship that's 684 feet long, 105 feet wide, weighed approximately 25,000 tons. It could carry almost a battalion of Marines, crew of a couple of hundred, and project our force anywhere in the world. Burt was relied upon by the highest technical people in the Navy as being one of the foremost experts in his field. I remember he was very proud that several times he went out on sea trials of taking the young officers and training them on how to ballast the ship up and down, which was it was a timed event, quite technical, and then we would time how long it would take to bring the ship down to full ballast condition and then back up.